Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back. Today's story is called Stay Out of the In-Between Spaces, written by Star. And with that, sit back, grip your seats, stay inside for the night, and enjoy the show. I've always enjoyed running from the time I was very little. There's no better way to get into complete sync with the rest of my body than to put on a loose t-shirt and some stretchy shorts, then lace up my running shoes for an hour or so of pure, mindless movement. I don't even need to wear headphones. The slap of my feet on the pavement is enough for me. When I run, my vision simultaneously focuses down to a point while also allowing me to see far away. I can't really describe it better than that, but I'm sure that most other runners out there know what I mean. I have to say, the pandemic really came at a perfect time. Not only have I been working a remote-only IT job for years, but the somewhat clunky delivery services that I was having to rely on before were a nightmare. And often I had to brave the only 24-hour supermarket, which is one town's drive over, at 2 a.m. just to stock up on some of the foods that I couldn't order by mail delivery. I've got 2 fridges, a large deep freezer, and a generator to ensure none of it spoils in the event of a blackout. There have been some unfortunate changes due to the shelter-in-place rules, but I'll get to that in a bit. I still live in town, unfortunately, as all of my attempts to move to the country have failed due to a combination of lack of adequate internet speeds to properly do my job, and the fact that while the for sale signs go up and down on some of the moldering, run-down properties just outside town on a fairly regular basis, I never see much in the way of development or change. From what I've read, this is probably due to a bunch of rich people buying the land and reselling it to serve as a tax haven. But in the end, it doesn't really mean much to me beyond the fact that after years of saving, the best I could do was a townhome in a slightly less busy suburb area. At least I don't have to share a ceiling with any neighbors stomping around at odd hours and making my skin crawl. But I've still had to install acoustic foam on both of my shared side walls and in my office, which is blessedly in the back of the place, so that I don't have to hear the squeals of children playing or the clatter of cutlery in other people's kitchens. Some people like the sound of knowing that other people are going about their lives, but it honestly makes me physically ill. If I could swing it, I'd truly live out in the middle of nowhere, but as you know, the middle of nowhere doesn't get regular Amazon deliveries, so I've made do with what I can get. But I digress. You might be wondering why I'm writing this here. I mean, I understand your confusion. This seems like it would be more appropriate to post this stuff in a sports forum or one of those angry sites bemoaning the evils of capitalism or something. And yeah, I have posted it in my local social media groups and runners forum as well. But I know your lot are well known for believing and even stupidly investigating this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to warn you now. Stay out of the in-between spaces. You might be wondering why I'm risking telling you about them to begin with. And well, I've struggled with that very question. But in the end, I've decided that it's better that I warn you to stay away than have you learn it from some other hapless moron who stumbles upon it and acts like it's the greatest supernatural occurrence in the world and starts encouraging people to try it themselves. Also, I'm not stupid. I won't be giving you step-by-step instructions on how to gain access. But I know that there's plenty of urban legends out there, and there's no way to properly keep a secret once its existence spreads onto the internet. I've done my fair share of DuckDuckGoing and Googling, and found a few things that seem to confirm that others have found access to another part at the very least. but I don't particularly care as long as they stay in their own lane. And in fact, the idea of writing something like this even a few weeks ago would have been absurd to me, because that was before, well, I'll get to that in a minute. No, the reason I'm warning you to stay away is because there are very specific rules. Obviously, there are rules everywhere, so why not there? That you need to follow. But more importantly, I am sick and tired of being interrupted on my runs. I didn't used to go. It used to be that as long as I got up at 4 a.m., I was out there running early enough to miss pretty much every other human being, other than the odd bleary driver, and they never paid me any mind. I certainly didn't have to pass others or deal with the uncomfortably hot, crawling feeling of having a greeting lobbed at me. Any interaction with others rips me out of my serene zone of focus, and it utterly ruins the whole thing. In fact, I hate human interaction if at all possible. And it's the one reason why I took a job that was mainly email with only very intermittent phone contact. The focus on pointless Zoom meetings has thankfully not affected my company too badly, as my position is all about applying web updates after the help desk monkeys are finished sorting out what needs to be done. In short, COVID happened, and while it improved my grocery and takeout delivery options without having to even see the other person, it totally ruined my running time. Turns out that when people are told to avoid one another and stay in their houses due to a deadly pandemic, a lot of people decide to take up jogging. And they get up earlier and earlier to avoid the crowds. And this was unacceptable for me. At first, I thought I could just get up earlier, you know. I started getting up at 3 a.m., certain nobody else would be awake. But no. There was some flabby, middle-aged man wearing ill-fitted shoes and hobbling about in a way that approximately jogging, coming the opposite direction on the narrow suburban sidewalk, without a mask or anything, and he had the gall to puff out a greeting at me. I was utterly disgusted. I immediately had to run home and take at least an hour-long shower to reduce the crawling, prickling sensation of disgust to a manageable level. Soon it became apparent that pretty much everyone in my neighborhood had decided to stick with a jogging regimen. It was like being in a zombie film every time I tried a new route. I'd be running without a care in the world, and I'd hear a groaned-out greeting or small talk, and needed to flee back to the safety of my home with a sick dread churning in my guts. Yeah, if you haven't guessed already, I really can't stand people. I mean, really cannot stand them. They smell terrible. There's just something about their inherent shapes. No matter how attractive they might be considered by others, that utterly disgusts me. Oddly enough, I'm fine with myself. It's just other people that make me want to puke. Email is fine, of course, and even the odd video here and there is okay, but the actual experience of having to endure the presence of another human being is just utterly revolting. So anyway, after a week or two of this, I was practically coming apart at the seams. I need my run to put my day in order and keep me focused while I get through the day's programming tickets. And I was getting desperate. I even tried driving to the outskirts of town to run along the road. But even there, I find myself accosted by the repugnance of another runner, invading my personal space. When I turned to go back to my car, I was nearly run down by some asshole on a bicycle. And that was enough for me. Desperate, I turned to at least 3 different local running groups on social media, asking for ideas for remote running paths. But pretty much all of the suggestions were already out of the question, or were soon determined to be a bust. There is another runner's forum that I've been using on and off since the early 2000s, but it's pretty dead usually, as most people who used to post have moved on, likely to social media groups of some sort or other, and the site administrators and mods have mostly left the site design alone, other than a few basic updates to keep it working on modern browsers. It's pretty bare bones, but there's still some activity, and I just copied and pasted my post from the other groups there in order to be thorough. I did actually get a few replies, which surprised me as I had actually not used the site recently, other than a few brief posts, including a review about a pair of running shoes that had held up to my daily abuses for twice as long as normal back in 2018. But most of the suggestions were similar or the same to the responses I had gotten on social media. Eventually, I got to the point that I was willing to buy one of those treadmills you see on late-night TV for 5 easy payments of $2.99 and a free trial period. I paid for expedited contactless delivery and it arrived in only a few days. I set it up, but even though it did get me back into my daily movement without the logistical issues of encountering others, it paled in comparison to the real thing. I mean, I'm no expert in anthropology, but I know that animals in zoos behave differently than those in the wild. Having a treadmill was like being a lion in a cage being thrown meat each day. It kept you going, but it was no substitute for bringing down a kill yourself. And there's just something about the whole experience that is both mortifying and unsatisfying. So, when I was checking my email the other day, and noticed I had received a PM email notification from the runner's forum with the subject matter, "Hey." I ignored my instant suspicion that this was some sort of spam or bot, or some pervert sending links to unsolicited dick pics. To be honest, this is one benefit of the limitations of older forums. Many of them didn't allow for direct image posting, so you could look at the URL they posted before clicking over. But I digress. I logged into my account and clicked into my PM section, and opened up the message. It was from an account called __pound, and the user image was blank. I looked at the stats under the username and it looked like they had 0 forum posts under their belt, and was listed as new runner. Which means that they likely had created the account relatively recently. I, on the other hand, had the status of veteran runner, due to my long-standing account. Still, I was curious and read through the message. At the worst, I'd have to see some copy-paste spam message with some obviously dubious link. I wasn't prepared for the message that lay within. "Hello, my real name. I am writing this message to you because I can tell that you have the discretion and the dedication to find alternative solitary arrangements for your daily runs. I am happy to discuss this further with you here." From Star. The word "here" had a URL link associated with it, and I hovered my pointer over it, and it was to a site I wasn't familiar with. The end of the URL was named Private Chat, which gave some idea of what it would lead to. Still, I hesitated to click over, especially with what I know about network and computer security. I needed to do some research first, but I can't deny that my curiosity was piqued. Now, first off, I had never mentioned my real name on the forum. I actually went back and checked after I read the message because I honestly couldn't remember if maybe I'd let it slip at some point, but no, I hadn't. Also, while I had written plenty of reviews on running equipment and routes and such, I've never posted pictures that showed any identifying information. And the routes I used varied across the entire town, and even further than that, which would make narrowing it down very difficult, unless someone had actually followed me through all of them to deduce that it was me and not some other runner. My social media footprint is fairly light, and while I still make inquiries and provide advice on running groups through there, I don't usually take photos or post about where I've been on any sites that are tied to my name and face. When I did a few searches on the URL, I couldn't seem to find anything. Even when I used several different browsers, including 2 that people use to find things hidden on the internet, but that I'm not going to mention here because it's irrelevant to the situation. And honestly, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you shouldn't be messing with it. So eventually, I opened up a secure virtual desktop on my backup computer, which is a bit older than my primary desktop, but still fully up to date on all protections. There was no way I was going to accidentally brick my main console. But my curiosity and my desperation to find any alternative to being trapped inside for the foreseeable future drove me onward. First, I typed in the URL. It didn't work, just led to a 404. It was disappointing. But I was ready for it. So then I decided, why not? I'll just click it from the message. It opened up a black screen, and the username star showed up with a cursor. It immediately began to type a message. And then I noticed that the next line popped up with my name on it, allowing me to reply. I'm not going to go into the specifics on what we chatted about, but the main point was that Star offered me an alternative space to run, one that has very specific rules if I wish to safely return once I'm done. And I figured that why not try it? It wasn't like I had any other options that were truly acceptable to me. Gathering the materials wasn't particularly easy, but Star sent me a package about a week later that helped me complete the task easily enough. There was a ritual of sorts, but it was mainly to anchor the door in one place, as they otherwise tend to wander, and if I didn't have to leave my home, all the better. Once again, I'm not going to tell you the details because I don't want you to go there, because I don't want to be bothered. But I also know that sometimes idiots go through spooky doors, and then they stumble upon the in-between spaces. I may not like people, but I'm not an asshole. So that's why I'm going to tell you the rules of the in-between spaces. Star says that is what they call it, but honestly, they've probably had more names than this, and it's as good a name as any. I mean, it's practical, not spooky or mysterious or anything. Just tells you what it is without any pussyfooting around with arcane phrasing. So here's the rules. Please read them and absorb them because it's important. Number 1. If you see a door where a door never was before, do not open it. Number 2. If you open it for some reason, and the inside is completely dark to the point that you can't see anything beyond the threshold, don't go inside. Number 3. If you are stupid enough to go inside, make sure you walk in a straight line until the darkness fades and a road or path appears. Number 4. Keep running in a straight line with your eyes pointed forward and angled down towards the road. Do not look up or around you, even if you hear something weird or see movement in the corner of your eye. Number 6. Nothing can interact with you unless you gaze at it directly. Number 7. Move at a steady pace. Run, walk, etc., but do not stop. If you stop, the road will disappear and you will be lost. Number 8. Continue moving forward until you reach the same door you entered through. Number 9. Open it and step through to return to the place that you left. I've been running there for the past few weeks, and I might say that it's been utterly invigorating. The creeping anxiety of running into human beings on my run is mostly gone, though I sometimes hear screams or howls that are annoyingly human. One of your lot, I suppose. sticking their nose where they shouldn't, and not following the very easy and obvious rules I stated above. My main point is that the past few days have been more screamy than usual, which is both annoying and concerning to me. And it occurs to me that someone must have leaked the secret about the in-between spaces. After all, even though the pandemic is hopefully nearly over, there are no shortage of people who are trying to find creative ways to get through boredom by investigating weird and creepy things. So to reiterate, stay out of the in-between spaces. And if you're too foolish to stay out of things that ought to not concern you, please note that my time to run is 4 a.m. If you see a suspicious or incongruous door that wasn't there before at 4 a.m., stay out of it and let me run in peace. After that, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you decide to follow the rules properly or if you get eaten by whatever swoops and crackles with static in the dark, cool, foggy air. I don't care about any of that. My focus is my feet slapping the pavement, the movement of my body moving with pure bliss and momentum, and the unmarred peace in my mind. And if you're a fellow dedicated runner like me, let me know. I'd be happy to check to see if Star might be willing to extend the same offer to you.